For nearly 20 years, Aaron Rodgers has been a walking highlight reel.
So if I ask you who the biggest diva quarterback is in the NFL, who would that be?
Oh, this is Aaron Rodgers. I'm sorry.
Slinging impossible throws, turning busted plays into jaw-dropping touchdowns, and owning the art of the Hail Mary like no one else.
Rodgers in the end zone. It is caught. Rodgers with a walk-off touchdown.
Now, as the NFL schedule is released, he's the most wanted man in football. The Pittsburgh Steelers are circling, hoping to land the four-time MVP. But just how great is he? And is Pittsburgh ready for the nightmare that is Aaron Rodgers? Without any other options, they might have to be. The Pittsburgh Steelers' 2024 season ended in a way fans know all too well. They barely made it into the playoffs and then lost right away in the wild card round.
Back. Meanwhile, there goes Henry. There goes Henry all the way for the touchdown.
Even worse, they lost their last 5 games in a row after starting the season pretty strong. Once the season was over, the team had a lot of questions to answer, and they didn't waste any time. One of the first big moves of the offseason, they traded a second-round pick and a small pick swap to the Seattle Seahawks to get star wide receiver DK Metcalf. Just like that, their wide receiver problem was fixed. Now they had DK Metcalf and George Pickens, 2 dangerous weapons on the field. But that left one big question. Who's going to play the quarterback? As free agency began, the Steelers had to make a choice between Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. But before they could decide, Fields signed with the New York Jets. Then Wilson packed his bags and headed to the New York Giants. Now the Steelers were left with only one real option. They had to hope that 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers would sign with them. It sounded kind of crazy. Okay, let's be honest. The Pittsburgh Steelers don't have the best offensive line in the NFL. But still, imagine Aaron Rodgers throwing passes to Pat Freiermuth, George Pickens, and DK Metcalf. That's a dream team right there. Plus, he'd be working with Arthur Smith, a coach Rodgers actually likes. Sounds like a perfect setup, right? But Rodgers didn't rush to sign with the Steelers. Why? Because he had his eyes on another team, the Minnesota Vikings. At first, the Vikings were doing well with Sam Darnold as their quarterback, but then Darnold left and signed a huge $100 million deal with the Seattle Seahawks. That left the Vikings with their rookie quarterback, J.J. McCarthy. Rodgers had an idea. What if J.J. McCarthy sat out for a year and he stepped in instead? Why? Because the Vikings might just be the most complete team in the NFL. Seriously, offense, defense, coaching, backups, they got everything. No weak spots. Their wide receivers are stacked, their defense is fierce, and even their backup running back is solid. So honestly, who can blame Rodgers for wanting to go there? It felt like he's trying to do what Brett Favre did, leave the Packers and play for the Jets and Vikings. But if Rodgers had his way, that's where he'd be. And things got even crazier. While Rodgers was busy trying to convince the Minnesota Vikings to give him a chance, the Pittsburgh Steelers were just waiting, sitting there, watching, hoping. Back in late March, Rodgers threw some passes with DK Metcalf. He even met with the Steelers. But guess what? He still didn't give him an answer. No yes and no, just silence. The whole thing dragged on all the way through the NFL draft. Honestly, there's no deadline. He can take his sweet time. But here's the real question. What makes Rodgers so special that the Steelers want to bring him on board?
In the 2005 NFL Draft, the Green Bay Packers select Aaron Rodgers, quarterback from California.
After Rodgers was drafted by the Green Bay Packers, he didn't start right away. He had to wait behind Brett Favre, a true legend and 3-time MVP. People in Green Bay loved him. Then in 2008, the Packers made a bold move. They let go of Favre and handed the keys to Rodgers. And indeed, he did show up. In his very first season as a starter, he threw for over 4,000 yards. That's something no other NFL quarterback had ever done in their first season.
Still on the roster, could come back later on. Going for the end zone. Touchdown!
He also threw 28 touchdowns and 13 interceptions. Not bad at all for a first-timer, and definitely a sign that this guy had something special.
He's got it for a touchdown!
But in 2009, everything started to click for Aaron Rodgers. He already had one full season as a starter, and now it was time to shine. His throws were like laser beams, deep passes flying through the air, landing perfectly in the receiver's hands.
Good throw.
Fans couldn't believe what they were seeing.
Touchdown!
By the end of the season, Rodgers wasn't just good, he was one of the best in the entire NFL. He threw for 4,434 yards, 30 touchdowns, and only 7 interceptions. His passer rating was 103.2, the second best in the whole league. And guess what? Rodgers was heading to the playoffs for the very first time. Their opponent? The Arizona Cardinals.
Second down and 3 over the middle.
Led by the legendary Kurt Warner. And it started badly. On the Packers' first play, Rodgers threw a pass that went too far and it got picked off by the Cardinals. Arizona jumped to a quick 17-0 lead. Some people thought Rodgers wasn't ready for the big stage, but they were wrong. Rodgers answered. He kept the Packers alive. Late in the fourth quarter, he led a game-tying drive to make it 45-45. The crowd went wild. The game was heading to overtime. The Packers even won the coin toss and had the ball first, and everyone thought Aaron Rodgers was about to lead them to victory. But it went sideways quick. Rodgers went down to throw a deep pass, but before he could even let it fly, a defender knocked the ball out of his hands. The Cardinals scooped it up and ran it back 17 yards for a touchdown. Just like that, the Packers lost. It was heartbreaking, but for 26-year-old Aaron Rodgers, this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. No one knew it back then, but that 2009 season was the start of one of the greatest careers the NFL has ever seen. Fast forward to 2011, and Rodgers was on fire. The Packers were nearly unbeatable. They won their first 13 games and finished with the best record in the league, 15-1. Rodgers' stats were just crazy. He threw for 4,643 yards, 45 touchdowns, and only 6 interceptions. His passer rating, a record-breaking 122.5, the highest ever at the time. And the pinnacle of professional sports, a Super Bowl win. Of course, he was named MVP. He earned it. Then, in 2020, Aaron Rodgers displayed an incredible performance that made him win his 3rd NFL MVP award. But even with all that success, he still wanted something more, another Super Bowl ring. So in 2021, he came back hungry. Speaking of being hungry, if you're hungry for the absolute best NFL football channel on YouTube, then you need to subscribe to Huddle Up and stay fed all year long.
Rodgers zips one in there for Tunyon.
Rodgers led the 2021 Packers to another amazing season, 13 wins and just 3 losses. He threw for 4,115 yards, 34 touchdowns, and only 4 picks. He made the incredible look easy, and he made sure the Chicago Bears knew exactly who owned them. Remember that time he ran in for a touchdown and shouted, "I still own you"?
Rodgers snaps it quick. Pressure coming. Scrambles to his right. Pumps and runs. Aaron Rodgers is inside the pylon.
Yeah, he wasn't wrong. Rodgers had a crazy record against the Bears, 24 wins and only 5 losses. Make that 26-5 if you count the playoffs. The Packers ended the 2021 season as the number 1 seed in the NFC. It looked like they were ready for another deep playoff run, but then came the San Francisco 49ers again. And yeah, it didn't end well. Still, Rodgers won the NFL MVP again. That made 4 of them in his career. Only a few players in NFL history have ever done that. It showed the world that Rodgers wasn't just good, he was one of the greatest quarterbacks ever. He made his teammates better, he made defenses look silly, and he made football fans everywhere say, wow, every single week. However, off the football field, Aaron Rodgers has been getting a lot of criticism the last few years. The 4-time NFL MVP isn't known for his plays anymore. He's become just as famous for his strange ways of dealing with stress. One of the things Rodgers does is go on darkness retreats. This means he spends several days in a pitch black room. No lights, no phones, no clocks, just a big quiet room with a small bathroom and a bathtub. Rodgers said that he stayed in one for 5 nights and 4 days. By the 3rd day, he said his brain started to hallucinate. He began seeing and feeling things that weren't real. He explained that it happens because the brain starts releasing a natural chemical called DMT. He said it was nearly impossible to text or do anything because he had no idea what time it was. Just complete darkness 24/7. Rodgers also tried ayahuasca retreats, which involve drinking a plant-based tea that causes hallucinations. These retreats are supposed to help with emotional healing, but they've stirred up a lot of controversy. Not everyone was impressed. Fans on X didn't hold back. Some mocked him, saying these retreats didn't seem to help his performance anyway. He should just retire already, one person posted. All that darkness didn't make him better on the field, another fan added. He realized his season was dark enough, someone joked. At the same time, a new docuseries called Enigma is giving fans a deeper look at Rodgers' life. In the series, he opens up about his rocky relationship with his family, especially with his brother. Rodgers said the distance started back in high school when he began to feel differently from the rest of his family. Meanwhile, one of the wildest moments in Rodgers' new docuseries comes in episode 2. In it, Rodgers and a group of friends take part in a traditional ceremony inside a temazcal, an ancient sweat lodge used by indigenous people. It's supposed to represent a journey back into the mother's womb. They sit for hours in a small, smoky tent as a guide slowly adds burning hot rocks, turning the hut into an oven. As the heat rises, so does the tension. Rodgers admits to seeing strange visions, hearing weird sounds, and almost passing out. People are sweating like crazy, some even throwing up from the heat. When Rodgers finally stumbles out of the lodge, sweaty, shirtless, and exhausted, he lays in a puddle of water, eyes closed, trying to cool down and recover from the intense experience. But the docuseries doesn't skip the hard stuff. It also covers Rodgers' 2021 COVID-19 controversy. When reporters asked if he was vaccinated, he said, "Yeah, I'm immunized." But when he tested positive for COVID and had to miss a game, the truth came out, and fans were furious. He called the whole situation a witch hunt. As for football, he doesn't give a straight answer on his destination team in 2025 in the docuseries. He said, "There's football legacy and there's character legacy," he says. Football legacy means the Hall of Fame, but character legacy? That's about who you are every day, and that matters more to me. Then he pauses, looks straight at the camera, and adds, "It could be the last year, or it could not be." So, did the Steelers draft a quarterback to compete with him? No, they didn't. Instead, the Steelers had one of the most interesting drafts in years. Their defense needed help, especially at defensive tackle, so in the first round, they picked Derek Carman, a tough, powerful lineman. They didn't have a second-round pick because they traded it to get DK Metcalf. Worth it? But in the third round, they had to fill a big hole. Their star running back, Najee Harris, had left and signed with the Chargers. So who did the Steelers pick? Caleb Johnson. Strong, fast, new running back ready to make his mark. In the fourth round of the NFL draft, the Steelers had a big chance. Shedeur Sanders, a quarterback many thought would go in the first round, was still available. But guess what? They passed him by. Instead, they picked Jack Sawyer. Everyone thought, okay, maybe they'll take Shedeur in the next round. But the Steelers didn't grab a quarterback until the sixth round when they picked Will Howard. And that just made things more confusing. Why skip a top talent like Shedeur Sanders when he didn't even have a solid quarterback? Seriously, Steelers, what is going on? Fans were shocked that Shedeur wasn't picked earlier. It made everyone think maybe they really are planning to bring in Rodgers. Right before the draft, Rodgers even went on the Pat McAfee show and said he still hadn't made a decision yet. The Steelers had so many chances to do better. They could have drafted a young quarterback to learn and grow, or they could have just given Justin Fields a real shot to show what he could do. But no, they went in a totally different direction. Look, the Steelers usually make smart moves, but when it comes to the quarterback position, it's like they keep rolling the dice and hoping for the best. Oh, and remember George Pickens? Yeah, they traded him during the draft. Huge hole at wide receiver now. Then, with the 21st pick, they grabbed Derek Harmon, even though Matthew Golden was still on the board. 2 picks later, the Packers drafted him. Golden could have been a strong wide receiver too for years on a cheap rookie deal. It felt like a missed opportunity. So now the big question is, what are the Steelers even doing? If the GM and ownership had any clue, they would have drafted one of these guys, 5 future Hall of Famers.